This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing. It is a new season with new possibilities and new opportunities for drivers of the 2K World Cup, presented by DES Simulation. As we say hello, good evening, and welcome to round number one. Welcome to Summit Point, USA. 24 drivers in the 2K World Cup are literally about to get themselves ready to do qualifying. One lap is the game. As we just see the track there on your screen, it is just a tiny bit under 2 miles in length. It's got mostly cloudy skies here today, and that means it is 36 degrees. Track temperature, 32 degrees actually. It's just gone down quite a bit. And just only 1 mile an hour wind speed right now. Let's have a look through your schedule for this. It's a super season. We condense it down to 14 weeks worth of racing. We start here today at Summit Point. Next week, we go to Brands Hatch, then New Hampshire, Suzuka, Alton Park, the two roads, Road Atlanta, Road America, Barcelona, Sebring, and we wrap things up on December 4th at Silverstone. It's Will Vincent here along with Gary Weaver. And Gary, it's a super season. We've got races almost every week.
Yeah, this is going to be an incredible season to deal with these Skip Barber vehicles, and it's going to be really interesting. I've done probably this actual. I've driven this car at this track during the regular season, and it's really, really fun. So I would not be surprised if anyone else would not be having fun here.
Yeah, indeed. So the drivers are now on track. It is one qualifying lap they get over the next 3 minutes and change. Well, we get ourselves a chance to have a look at a couple of drivers. And let's start, of course, with the number one machine. He is the champion from last time out. It's Philippe Leber warming those tyres up as he heads himself on that run down towards the final corner, Gary.
And so when we warm up the tires, and with this, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the past champion, Philippe Leber, can deal with this track here at Summit Point, because there's pretty much, well, he's, that's, well, at least it's just his outlap so far, so he did go off the track just a little bit. Hopefully that will not be the case in his qualifying run, but this track is, in a sense, completely narrow. It's only basically just 2 lanes, and maybe you could go 3 wide if you try hard enough, but hopefully just down the straightaways.
Of course, we've also got ourselves that very long run between here and the final corner, down in towards turn 1. We're on board with Simon Edwards in the number 52 car as he works himself through that first corner right now. And actually, we see a lot of Simon Edwards on Monday nights, and what we have seen Simon Edwards do a number of times in the past here, Gary, is try and work that outside line into turn number 1. It takes a committed driver to do it, but if you get it right, that's going to be your easiest way to make passes here.
Not only committed, but very talented. Simon Edwards, I remember seeing him about the top 5 or so pretty much most of the time in these in the past season. So that outside line can definitely be a little bit of an advantage at some points here on this track. So we'll see how Simon Edwards can do, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he can do that while side by side in these And that's basically two-lane raceway.
Yeah, we're on board with Edwards right now. We see our first lap times coming up on the left-hand side of your screen in towards that final corner. Let's have a look, put the sector information up then. For Simon Edwards, 1:22.424 is currently the time to beat Simon Edwards. It's a long way down to the start-finish line here. A lot longer than people expect it to be. Edwards past the line, 1:22.318, and that will put him up to the top of the timing stands for the moment. But let's go back then to Philippe Burr. He is now heading himself down towards that final corner. He's finishing his lap. Johnny Gindy goes to the top of the timing stands just for a moment's time. But what can the reigning champion do? Philippe Burr past the stripe. He won't go to pole. He will go himself up into third place.
That's actually 3 drivers who I'm staying second, third, and fourth, all within that exact same 122.3 time bracket. So that's definitely going to be a little bit of a battle. But John Gindy is the only one to get past the 122.2 by, I'm seeing 2/1000ths of a second. So Gindy is so far putting on a very interesting show just by lap time.
Yeah, on board with Sasha Gall. He hasn't done his lap time yet. Neither has Carfrick Pye. The majority of drivers have. Of course, they've only got a few more seconds to get past the start-finish line. Sasha Gall will get there in time as Carfrick Pye moves up into 18th place. Sasha will do a lap time 1:22.456, and that will put him up into 6th place on the timing stands for the moment. I will say one thing, 2nd through to 6th is mighty close right now.
Yeah, it's just insanely close throughout all of that. So that's going to be an interesting run to see down entering the first corner off the start.
Yeah, indeed. So that is it. Qualifying is over, and the drivers will now be getting ready to head themselves down to the starting grid for this round number 1 of the 2K World Cup Super Season presented by DES Simulation. And let's run you through your starting grid for this race. And at the front of your field, it is going to be Johnny Gindy in the number 18 car, 1:22.198. Alongside him on that front row will be Mr. Monday Night, Simon Edwards in the number 52 machine. Third place will go to Philippe Burr, your reigning champion. And then alongside him on that second row of the grid will be Julian Arfret. As we move back to row number 3, Diego Francisco and Sasha Gall. Enzo Cantor and Alfredo Malo, they are going to be on row number 4, with Arian De Freitas and Gonzalo Calvo in row 5. Greg Zeet and Edwin Valerino on the 6th row of the grid. And then Scott Valles and Francois Boulien in row 7. Anthony Catt, Carl Dronke in row number 8. As we see the rest of those times coming up on your screen. Final thoughts, Gary, before we go green.
Again, with that run towards turn number 1, the thing is, if you're near the back of the field, or at least the second half portion, you're definitely going to be better off just not making any major moves up until everything gets sorted out.
Yeah, we see the drivers. They are now heading themselves down onto that starting grid. There's a reminder of the track and other track conditions. 34 degrees Celsius is the track temp. It's 26 degrees in the air, but the winds have picked up recently, up to 15 kilometers an hour at 10 mile an hour gusts, and that will make things a little bit more interesting for these drivers. I think we've almost got all of the cars now on the starting grid, and that means we can go down to starters orders here as the lights will go on top of the iRacing gantry, and then we are going to be ready to go racing here. Lights on, lights go green, and we are underway as it's a shorter run on this first lap down in towards turn number 1, and that gives the opportunity for these drivers to just start thinking about getting themselves into a lane, thinking about where they're going to position themselves for this first couple of corners. And you can see actually it's a good start by Philippe Burr. He's been able to get himself up to 2nd place on track. Simon Edwards down into 3rd place. Julian Arfret remains in 4th position right now. In fact, we're on board with that number 33 driver as they work through the left-hander. But, oh, we got a car gone off, and that's at the very front of your field. Was that your race leader, Johnny Gindy? It was Johnny Gindy.
Johnny Gindy went incredibly wide there, and yeah, pushed it too hard. The right rear of his tire lost grip, and he just slipped out somehow. He manages to save it and just fall back into at least second place, but that was almost at the cost of almost his entire race.
Yeah, that one deserves a second look on board with Johnny Gindy. I think he just catches it on the way into turn number 2. And I want to get another look. There we are. Coming into the corner, does he just touch? No, the back end just steps out on him. I thought he might have touched a little bit of grass there, but he just gets snap oversteer. And very lucky for everyone around him. Good heads-up driving by Labour and Simon Edwards not to run into the back of him.
That's a very amazing heads-up driving, and that's the thing that can pretty much save you. And while speaking of Simon Edwards, he's making that pass on the outside, but granted, it's down the straightaway for the time being. It's passed, at least beside Philippe Laibert, into turn number 1 with the advantage, and with a preferred lane on the middle corner exit, almost for that time being. They'll still remain side by side here.
Yeah, and I said earlier on that Simon Edwards is good when it comes to that outside lane, but he's working out how wide he needs to take it in order to make that pass work even. More cars gone off. Go on.
Yeah, he went a little bit wide, and so did everybody else. So probably about 4 cars total just went wide. So I did see him go a little bit wide. I'm surprised and very glad. I'm pretty sure, just like he is, that his tires did not lose any grip on that on those right side tires when he got into the gravel.
Yeah, the TT Racing car, Diego Francisco, number 48 car, he was one of the many that all decided to go wide down at the second corner. And as a consequence of that, we have got ourselves a little bit of separation in your field. We've got 5 drivers in your lead pack. They are Philippe Laibert, Simon Edwards, Johnny Gindy, Julian Arfret, and Alfredo Malo. But behind, we've got very close battling going on. Arian De Freitas just making the pass on Diego Francisco as they exit the final corner and head themselves down this long front straightaway once again. At the front of your field, Simon Edwards is probably a little bit too far back to make the move over Philippe Laibert as they come down in towards turn number 1. But a lot of drivers early on, they are going to be wondering how far back they need to be, or how far back is the maximum distance they can be down that start-finish straight to get the massive toe there, Gary.
And the maximum distance is definitely something that is very important to know, especially, which is why, well, it's probably one reason why there's an hour of practice, but another reason is, well, it can definitely help out, especially if you want to practice just one thing, like in this case, the draft. You could work with your teammates to see what exactly is that distance for that slipstream.
Yeah, your top 5 drivers, you can see, they have pulled out now a 2-second gap to Arian De Freitas, who runs in 6th place. And there's possibly a bit of a reason why they are working together at the front of your field, not battling too hard right now. And it is because of the fact that we know how aggressive Arian De Freitas can be, especially when it comes to things like pit stops. De Freitas historically will always try and roll the dice. So even though he's a 2.5 back right now, your lead group, that could dissipate in an instant. Enzo Cantor, Sasha Goyle are also in that second pack. So that second pack right now has got a lot of star power in it, Gary. And it's actually, here comes Enzo Cantor looking down to the inside, and he won't get the pass done before the start-finish line, but he will get the pass done into turn 1.
Yeah, it's a great move by Enzo Cantor, and just referencing that star power. I mean, we have seen Philippe Laibert and Simon Edwards last season, but personally, I don't believe I've seen Johnny Gindy often. Same with the 22 of Alfredo Malo and Julian Alfret. So those two are definitely making a name for themselves, even if they, at least for this season.
Yeah, indeed, of course. We know that Gindy was a big part of the series, as we see a lot of cars. They're going 3 wide, and we've got a car in the grass. I believe that is Diego Francisco in the TT Racing car. That one deserves a second look, but that second corner seems to be the trouble spot here today. And Diego Francisco was actually avoiding the Simitok car, who was slow. And actually, there's a car, oh my word! The number 17 of Sasha Goyle goes sideways into Diego Francisco. That could have been catastrophic there, but they all somehow, and I say the word somehow, managed to survive again. But there is a car who hasn't got a rear wing. I was wondering whether that's a lap down car.
That's Enzo Cantor.
Enzo Cantor's lost himself his rear wing, and he's, well, at the very rear of your field and bringing that car on towards pit road for repairs. And there you can see the Thrustmaster Movano car coming on towards pit road. And what the consequence of that is pretty simple. Now that pack of 4 or 5 drivers has gone down to 2. Arjen de Freitas in 6th and Sasha Gall in 7th. But more importantly, because there's no tow in the second group anymore, it means that the gap between 5th place and Julian Arfret and Arjen de Freitas, who is in 6th place, has grown to 2.7 seconds on track.
And Sasha Gall, while going off the track again, he's actually got a little bit. They've actually got a little bit of front wing damage as well, and that's the reason that Enzo Canta is missing the rear wing. Is that second corner, Sasha Gall had misjudged the braking distance. Canta braked a little bit earlier than Gall anticipated, and that led Gall to run straight into the back bumper, and then it was just on from there, unfortunately, for Enzo Canta in terms of bad luck.
At the front of your field, though, Felipe Burr, Simon Edwards are taking it easy at the start of this race. They're separated by about a third of a second as they come down in towards that final corner. Once again, it's a sweeping, long, 90-degree right-hander. It's got a lot of runoff on the exit of the corner. That does mean that you can be a little bit aggressive coming off the corner. We're likely to see that on the final lap. And you can see Edwards just saving a little bit of fuel. It's the game sometimes here in the 2K World Cup. Do a little bit of fuel saving as Conor Van Ram has had himself an incident on track. And let's see, did he do this all by himself or was he helped? It's into the final corner. And the number 54 machine catches the curb on the inside. And, oh, yeah, he loses it all by himself, Gary. And straight in to the tyre barrier, separating the track from pit road.
Yeah, completely just lost the grip, and those bumps there just really upset the tires, and unfortunately he just got nose first and decided to take it back into essentially the paddock or garage area, calling it a day, unfortunately, here for tonight. Yeah,
it's a real club racing field, this track at Summit Point Raceway. It's one of the tracks that many people start their iRacing careers on. This and Line Rock Park, when I first joined iRacing back in 2011, these were the 2 tracks that you had to master, along with WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, which of course yesterday hosted an incredible penultimate round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup here on Racespot TV and on the iRacing Esports Network. We're on board, by the way, with Diego Francisco once again. But I mean, of all the tracks of the schedule, this is arguably the one that people know better than others.
Yeah, I've been putting in a lot of time as of late with the this new season. The first week, it's very, very fun in these Skip Barber Cup cars. So Skip Barber Formula cars, I should say. But it's really enjoyable to just run here with these cars, and it's the most fun that I've had at this track as well. So definitely a good place to get your start from a driver standpoint, at least in my view.
Yep, and of course you can use it on the road up the iRacing progression. If you're going to take the open wheel thing, of course you start off here, then you've got a choice of things like the Formula Renault, you've got a choice of things like the Pro Mazda to then lead you to things like the IndyCar, and of course you've got the Williams and the McLaren Grand Prix cars that can be the ultimate for you. Of course, we haven't got a World Championship Series for open wheel cars anymore. Martin Kroenke was the final champion in the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series that ended last year. But I'm going to look at this battle going on for 10th, 11th and 12th place for a bit more of a moment as we go on board with Francois Bullion in the Orion Racing Team car into the final corner, and you've got Arnaud Chabrens just ahead of him. It's a French driver versus a French-Canadian driver as they come down in towards turn number 1, and the number 10 of Carl Drunke is just ahead of them, running in 10th place.
And he's just sitting there, and appropriately enough for his car number, he's, as you mentioned, running 10th place, so he doesn't really have much to worry about, but at the same time, he does have a little bit to worry about because he doesn't have Diego Francisco directly in front of him, because Francisco is working with Zeeks, and then at that point, just making her way up the field, but it's just a little bit of a train of cars here, as looks like the 225 of Gonzalo Calvo will join this little, not exactly battle, but more of a train here for 10th through soon to be 13th.
Yeah, indeed. So back at the front of your field, we go on board briefly with Johnny. Oh. What's going on? Oh, that's Carl Drunke.
Yeah, he went a little bit wide. You got the curb as well, and I just immediately, probably shouldn't have said 10th place appropriately enough for his car number. That's the commentator's curse right there. So a quick pass for both the 888 and the 92.
Yeah, caught the curb on the inside, and then just had no stopping power really as he came down into the twisty section, the Mickey Mouse section, if you wish to call it that. This track really is a racetrack of two halves. It's got yourself the fast sweeping front section and then the very tight technical infield section. We are now on lap number 9 of 28 here in the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulation, and well, it should be one stop to the end here today, but that pit window should be pretty wide. It can be open from about lap number 12 here, and stay open for a very long time as we're looking at the 888 car on board of him. He's got Francois Boulien, who has just managed to make the pass on the outside of turn number 1. So the outside does work here, Gary, into turn number 1. Of course, Francois Boulien and the Orion Racing Team car. Orion Racing Team have been around pretty much since iRacing were a thing. Francois Boulien representing that team well.
He's doing a very amazing job as Carl Drunke goes wide. Well, actually loses grip again in that same corner. I don't know if he got a little contact from behind. He did, actually. So 225, yeah, he stopped just a little bit and then got tagged from behind about 225. So it's just more bad luck for Carl Drunke in that section of the racetrack.
You're right.
Oh, somebody went way off.
That would be Carfrick Pie, and Carfrick Pie looks as though he is out of this event. I want to see if I can get the look there. There is Carfrick Pie in the 208 car. He's at the rear part of this field, driving for Club Texas. And yeah, oh, he just completely goes off there down at the second to last corner. So some technical gremlins, most likely for him. We're going to go back to live pictures and we can see continuation between Chabert and Francois Boulien, and Boulien losing that 10th place once again. But this is a great little scrap going on in the middle part of your field.
This is absolutely amazing to watch. These two, probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they knew each other so well, because they're definitely driving like they do, and it's showing, and I love this actually. So this little almost 3-car battle, essentially, more of a 3-car train, a 2-car battle essentially for one position. So it's very, very interesting to see possibly what could be two different styles, because we did see the 888 make a pass on the outside, and actually, sorry, the 92 make a pass on the outside, and Chabert just made his way right back around. So could be, well, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit more of this battle later on in this race.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that this has got not only a club feel to it in terms of the racetrack, it's got a club feel in terms of our TV cameras here as well, because it's one of those tracks that we use so infrequently that it's always impossible to get good data, to get decent cameras set up for this track. Of course, this one, Balau, does the majority of our cameras, but when you got a very long straight like this, it's a bit like it's Circuit de la Sarthe here. And it's a bit like you can and you want to try and get that entire front straight away in one camera, but then by the time you actually zoom into the very end of it, Gary, you have absolutely nothing you can see.
Yeah, the cameras are fun to mess with, I will say that. It's definitely very interesting. Club cameras, whatever, TV style cameras, even just static cameras that have awesome shots, which I have seen a fair share of over on well, on this actually, Race Spot essentially. So it's very interesting to see what can be done different tracks with different types of camera angles. And still, I'm pretty sure all those different types of camera angles can come in handy, because this battle for 10th place is more than likely not going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. As having a look at your front of your field once again, there are your top 3. It is Philippe Leber leading from Simon Edwards, then Johnny Gindy, as they work themselves down towards the start-finish line again. It's also really interesting on the pit road here, in that the pit road is technically before the start-finish line. So that is one thing that will confuse our timing and scoring graphics just a tiny bit when people come on towards pit road. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 cars still in your lead group. So Arjen de Freitas, he runs in 6th place. He hasn't been able to gain any time over your top 5, Gary, but he's not losing any over them right now.
Yeah, he's just in this was essentially no man's land. Not really in the toe of anybody else, but not really in having the toe, well, not exactly giving anyone else a slipstream in this case. So he's in a sense, it's a little bit of a relaxation for him, because he can rest. He doesn't have any pressure from out back. He doesn't really have to push too hard for 5th place, but definitely good to see that 5th place for him is still in sight. So he's kind of a little bit of an advantage on his own, but at a disadvantage in terms of track position.
Yeah, Philippe Leber has led pretty much this entire race. He got himself the race lead at the conclusion of lap number 1, and we're on board from the rear of him right now. And of course, he will be getting bonus points. I almost called them penalty points. He will be getting bonus points, of course, for laps led. Simon Edwards has been content, however, to allow Philippe to lead the majority of this race, and because there are so many long straightaways, and that's a big dive by Johnny Guindy into turn number 1. Guindy forcing the issue to move himself up into 2nd.
That's definitely one way to make a pass, I will say. So that is the definitely using any and all available room. Great job by Simon Edwards to immediately kind of back off there afterwards. So very much heads up driving for everybody there, and John Guindy is definitely wanting to get that lead back.
Yeah, as outside of our screen, somehow Carl Dronke is back up into 10th place, so he's been able to get past Arnaud Chabens as well as Francois Boulien. So Carl Dronke is back up into 10th place on track, and to finish my point from a moment ago, because of the fact that there are so very long straights here, it does mean that there is the opportunity to fuel save enough to maybe shave a second or so off your pit lane time. It's always a risky strategy, Gary, but there have been people who's been able to use it effectively. And again, De Freitas one that always does try to underfill, but he's not going to have the advantage because he's not been running in the draft the majority of this race.
Yeah, it's just going to be a little bit of waiting game as someone's going to pit road. Sasha Gorel actually right now.
Yep, so let's go on board. There is Sasha as he comes in, and actually Johnny Guindy's going for the race lead at the same time. We'll get ourselves a replay of that one in just a couple of moments time, because Philippe Leber and Johnny Guindy were side by side in towards turn number 1 as the Simitok car is going to do his pit stop out and away in 14.1 seconds. So let's go back and let's show you what happened on the run down in towards turn number 1. And you can see on the inside, that's Philippe Leber. On the outside, it's Johnny Guindy. Into the first corner they come. Guindy was actually ahead as they hit the apex of the corner, but just wasn't any grip there on the outside to allow him to complete the pass.
Yeah, it's just almost no room, but somehow, someway, Leber, and I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out throughout the season, because it looks like Guindy and Leber are almost pretty much the exact opposites of each other, because they just keep going for the lead every single chance that they get. So, and well, they both go pit road at the same time as well. So this is going to be even more interesting to see how this plays out.
Yep. So let's see them. Johnny Guindy's on towards pit road. Philippe Leber on towards pit road at the same time. It's a bumpy old pit road here. That's one thing I do remember from the times that I used to race here. It's a bumpy old pit road. Of course, there are no pit limiters in these cars. A lot of drivers coming in from the mid part of your field as well. Aaron De Freitas is in. Greg Zeet is in. Scott Valles is not coming on. He is actually on pit road. Leber and Guindy, and actually Guindy's got himself ahead of Philippe Leber there. He's got himself ahead by 2 car lengths, so Philippe Leber losing out on pit stops, but not substantially enough that it's going to impact anything. And actually Leber is going to be on the outside in towards turn number 1 now, but can't complete the pass.
An outside lane for Leber just directly off the pit road did not help in his favor whatsoever, unfortunately. So he'll have to definitely just, at this point, wait a little bit until after pit stops are completed, maybe. But I mean, they are in essentially no man's land between each other. So what Leber could do is instantly make a pass, but I'm pretty sure that he won't really do so up until he thinks the time is right as the first 2 runners are, yeah, but see that, my goodness, that is a very close entry.
Yeah, that one needs a quick second look on the RaceSpot TV replay as they come down. And it looks so that Alfredo was thinking about it, and by the time he actually committed on towards pit road, that track had narrowed down, Gary, to basically 1.5 car widths wide, but Simon Edwards pretty much had the line on towards pit road.
Yeah, it was, that was I've seen close pit entries before, but that's literally a close pit entry. So I'm pretty sure it's officially the point that that pit entry is the narrowest part of the racetrack, and somehow they still managed to make it past each other. So that's going to be interesting. As oh my goodness, Leber and Gindi are just both slipstreaming their way by. Now it's past Simon Edwards, and I was looking at the onboard Simon Edwards, and they just went flying by, and Leber was directly in the toe of Gindi.
Yeah, and the issue of this racetrack is as well, Gary, you do literally come on into oncoming traffic. It's a little bit like merging onto a highway when you've only got yourself a couple of 100 yards to actually merge into the fast speed lane. And, well, for Simon Edwards, that could have been a lot scarier. What we like to call a Code Brown moment, so to say, at this type of racetrack. But the issue is he lost quite a bit on that pit stop. He seems to have lost a lot of speed coming out of pit road. He's 2.5 seconds back from Philippe Leber, and what I don't get is the fact that he didn't lose any time coming onto or off a pit road that I could really see.
Very interesting to see that essential non-existent time difference between that, as looks like it's only one more driver to go pit road. That is, yeah, Julian Alfred. He's already in pit road, just now about to leave pit road even, so just catch possibly the tail end unless he actually entered out just in time, but I'm not sure.
Well, there's going to be a bit of a speed differential. Julian Alfred, though, is going to make the apex of turn number 1. Is Alfredo Mala going to try and go down the inside? No. Julian Alfred will pit later and takes the race lead, but pushes wide in towards turn number 1. And hello, let's go free-wide racing out of turn number 1. You got yourself Alfredo Malo. Johnny Gindi is on the outside line, and they somehow managed to avoid each other, get themselves single file for turn number 2, but Mallow is leading the race. Gindi second, Julian Alfred in third, and Philippe Leber in fourth. One driver that will be happy if these four start fighting will be Simon Edwards, as he will be brought back into play.
Yeah, so this can definitely help out for Simon Edwards, maybe even Aaron DeFrita, because he's just now catching up to Simon Edwards as well. So this could possibly be a 6-car train if the top 4 do keep fighting. And I do remember saying that 3 wide was possible. I didn't think we'd actually see it, though. So that's definitely very, very fun to see here at this track. So definitely looking forward to seeing how this plays out, because Philippe Leber is at essentially the tail end of this little pack. And then there's Johnny Gindi in second, and then there's Alfredo Malo, who I don't believe has even led a single lap as of yet. So this might be his first lap led, I believe.
It would be, yeah, his first lap led at the strike. We just looked there. It's got Velez and Gonzalo Calvo. They were close in towards final corner, but we go back to the front of your field. Gindi's looking for the outside line in turn number 1. Can he hold it on that outside line? He is clear out of turn number 1. So Gindi now will move himself to the point.
John Gindi not letting that lead go away from him. He's been up there a lot of times so far, and he's definitely showing that he does have, again, as he goes a little bit wide, but he's showing that he does have the skills to just make it back up front and stay up front, as multiple drivers are actually still catching the outside lane, but that's how hard they're pushing, and that's definitely interesting to see that so far hasn't really befallen anybody as of yet, that little gravel trap in turn number 2.
Yeah, as we go back a little bit to Carl Dronke, Francois Bullier, and that gravel trap, I've seen drivers basically kick up a load of dirt on the outside of that second corner. We've seen a lot of people get loose with the centre of that corner, but no one really doing a little bit of rallycross driving through that section of the racetrack, as we see Francois Bullier in that number 92 car. Even Carl Dronke is just ahead. We go back though to the battle for your race lead. We're on board with Alfredo Malo as he heads himself now to the outside line, trying to replicate what Johnny Gindi did 1 lap ago, as they'll head themselves down in towards turn number 1. Gindi's just so much better on the brakes.
And Gindi is absolutely amazing. I mean, he's got another pass on the inside. This is going to be trading back and forth for a while. I can definitely see that coming, as looks like Leber will make a move to the... It's not Leber, actually. That's Malo making the move to the outside, but no momentum there as of yet. And yeah, just a bit of rallycross driving, as usually the case is that you want to get those tires just on the edge of the ending portion closest to the gravel of that curbing off of turn number 2, but some are going just a little bit over. But again, no one's really gotten their tires too much, so that dust definitely not really bothering anybody here as of yet. And as for Gindi, well, he's definitely at home here in this lead so far.
Yeah, he is. We're on board with Philippe Labert in the number 1 machine. He's led the most laps here today, but he now settles down into 3rd place. And Malo's being aggressive, trying to make the move on the outside into the final corner. You can't really hold it because it goes down to single groove for the center of that corner. But now they'll come out that final sweep and down towards turn number 1 again. It is Gindi leading from Malo 2nd, Labert 3rd, Julian Offret in 4th place. Although Malo is looking on the outside, he should have that pass. But again, Gindi's so strong on the brakes that he's able to use that inside line. And now the door's open for Philippe Labert to have a look. Maybe on the outside in towards turn number 2, and you see that Simon Edwards goes from the right-hand side lane to the left-hand side and actually back through to the right a little bit. He's trying to figure out which driver he'd rather have, Johnny Gindi even. He's trying to work out here, Gary, which driver he wants to have right behind him.
It's very, in this case, oh man, okay, I thought Labert was going to go a little bit wide there off the corner for a second. That was that looked a little bit wide to me, but then again, that could just be the angle that I'm looking at from. So Labert is definitely, in a sense, very tactical about thinking, okay, who do I really want behind me? Do I want somebody who's a little bit slower or a little bit faster? And, well, usually it's the person that's a little bit slower, but in this case, with Labert going a little bit wide there, it did cause him to lose a little bit of momentum, and so now that gap has increased just a little bit, but nothing that can't be made up here on the straightaway. No,
it can't. Just to let you know, 2 retirees here today, Carfrick Pye in the 208 and Colin Van Ram in the number 54. We've had 2 drivers having to make 2 pit stops here today. They are Enzo Cantor and Anthony Capp. The reason for that was they had themselves a little bit of an issue earlier on in this race, and they weren't quite at the pit window in order to get their damage repaired and be good to go to the end of the race. Going to go down a little bit in your field for a brief moment. Let's go on board with Greg Zietz in the number 74 car. He's got his teammate Diego Francisco just ahead of him in the number 48 TT Racing car, as they are battling 7th, 8th and 9th place on track right now.
That's 2 positions, pretty much whatever can be done. Sasha Gorel, Diego Francisco, and occasionally Greg Zietz. We haven't seen Greg Zietz really up in the top 10, or sorry, the top 5 for a while, as Francisco makes a quick pass, and that may lead Zietz to get a pass as well, but Gorel, luckily, while still getting in the grass with those left sides, manages to hang on to that Skip Barber.
Yeah, we've had an incident on track. This was Ronan Griffin in the number 39 machine, and he just loops it all by himself there. But the thing is, there are leads. Oh no! Does he make contact with the one? Oh my word! That was silly there by Ronan. He knows better than that, certainly. I mean, he has a solo car incident to start it all off, but then after that, you don't pull back into traffic like that, Gary.
I think it happened. I'm still looking back at this as well. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's either a combination of the fact that he just mashed the throttle to get back onto the racetrack and he lost grip and got into the top side, and then just hoped that they would move back down to the driver's right-hand side in time. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's one for the stewards to look at after the race. We're on board with the number 10 of Carl Drunke once again. In 11th place right now, Gonzalo Calvo has moved himself in the 225 up into the top 10 for the time being. And actually, whilst we have the opportunity, let's show you the movers and shakers in your race so far here today. And, well, Alfredo Malo is your biggest mover inside your top 10, up 6 places from where he qualified. Carl Drunke is also up, it says 6 places. Of course, he lost P number 10 at the start of this lap. He's now actually only up 5 places. That makes Alfredo Malo your biggest mover in your field. And he's done that through a mixture of strategy, but also being aggressive with some of his moves. And he's going to try and go to the outside. Oh, Johnny Gindi once again into 1.
And he's going to try and make the outside lane work as much as possible entering turn 1. I've seen him pretty much at that point a lot of times using the outside lane and almost Not exactly didn't work, but almost did work as well. It's a little bit of a mix of both as he's right on the back bumper, peeks down to the left-hand side, but still not enough speed to try and really peek a nose down into the, I guess in this case, the rear tires of Johnny Gindi.
Yeah, but also you've got to consider the fact that every time that people do go out wide there, yes, it's going to become a little bit dirty on their tyres, but they're actually putting a bit more rubber down on that outside line. They're actually building up a little bit more grip on that outside line. It's not going to be anywhere near as much as the racing line itself, of course, but if you can just put some rubber down there, it might mean that you get the opportunity to make that last lap push stick a little bit more.
Yeah, I was actually about to bring that up as well, is that eventually throughout the course of this race and then the final laps, so that could definitely play out into a massive advantage in the event that you do have to go wide as well. And speaking of going wide, there goes Alfredo Malo peeking up down the inside, but Lebert goes straight through the middle, 3 wide down the front straightaway, and immediately, just like that, still with Malo on the outside, that's going to immediately shove Gindi down to third, and Felipe Lebert is definitely getting the lead off of the first turn, so absolutely an amazing pass by that number 1 machine.
Great opportunistic move there by Felipe Lebert. He saw that middle lane was open, he threaded a needle, got himself with the slipstream past Johnny Gindi, and Alfredo Malo was on the outside line, where he's pretty much been the last couple of laps. So Johnny Gindi, I'm not sure, we couldn't see that on the replay there, Gary, whether or not he was a little bit loose for that final corner, because he was working a little bit slower in terms of everyone else down that front straightaway.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a, in terms of saving, maybe a little bit of strategy there for that. Maybe not. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But John Gindi, I'm pretty sure, is not going to be leaving the top 3 anytime soon. But someone who could be joining this lead pack could be Simon Edwards and Aaron DeFrita. They are definitely visibly a little bit closer to that 33 of Julian Alfret. So that means we could have a 6-car train, maybe eventually a 6-car battle for the lead here.
I'm just doing the maths, by the way. This race is always scheduled on time as much as it is on lap. It's just worth me quickly bringing it up. It shouldn't be a major issue. We have got 4 laps to go in this race, but we've only got 5 minutes and change remaining in this race as well. So we should still see the white flag on the last lap of the race, unless everyone decides to start going really slowly and start battling a lot. But one thing that we can talk about, with all this battling going on inside your top 4, we've now got Simon Edwards, who is now back within touching distance, and he's bought himself a friend in Arian de Freitas.
Yeah, it's very nice to have someone a little bit to work with in a sense, especially since, well, in this case, not exactly visibly working with Simon Edwards is Aaron de Freitas, but at the same time, Aaron de Freitas didn't really decide to make a move on Simon Edwards during the point that they were catching up. So in that case, it's a little bit of a mutual respect thing, saying, you know what, I'm not going to pass you. I also want to catch back up. And then when we do that, then I'll battle you. So a little bit of a breakaway now between Malo and, Malo and Gindi for second and third place. And I think Gindi may be going a little bit slower as well, like you mentioned. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe he's a little bit tight on fuel. That could be one other alternative as well. He might be just a tiny bit tight on fuel. And the reason why I say that, Felipe Lebert, 15.4 second pit stop. Johnny Gindi, 13.6 second pit stop. Alfredo Malo, by the way, also should be a little bit tight. He did a 13.2 second pit stop. Simon Edwards did 14.4. Julian Alfret did 13.0, which is one of the reasons why we saw him come out with the lead at the point that he came out of pit road, even if it was, albeit only for a couple of moments. In fact, we are going to go on board with Julian Alfret in the number 33 car as they head themselves into that technical section on track once again. 2.5 laps to go in this race. And, well, the only thing I can say with certainty is that Felipe Lebert is currently leading, Gary.
That's definitely the thing to mention for the time being. We have seen Alfredo Malo try to make a pass multiple times, and at this point he has absolutely no pressure from third place or anybody else really behind him, so even he might be saving because he's dropped back just a little bit between himself and Lebert. So this time at the start-finish line, it's 2 to go, and it's essentially go time, and Simon Edwards knows that for sure because he is trailing Johnny Gindy, makes a pass up on the left-hand side, and he might get the advantage here down into turn number 1.
Yeah, this could be the easiest way of us telling if anyone is saving fuel. Simon Edwards easily passed. In fact, Iron De Freitas would have been able to go past as well. It was just where Johnny Gindy was positioned on the racetrack. I don't think that De Freitas wanted to try and go down to the ultra defensive line in towards turn number 1. To Simon Edwards, I think he realised that he was losing too much time behind Johnny Gindy. He was able to get ahead, but he pushes wide on the exit of turn number 2. He's got a lot of work to do in the last lap and a half of this event, though, to close up to the rear Philippe Leber and Alfredo Malo.
Yeah, closing in that lead is going to be definitely a little bit of an advantage, and we might be seeing, I don't know, we might see Simon Edwards catch up just at the end of possibly the next lap. I don't know if he'll be in time, but either way, he's still in time to make moves for at least the podium position. But right now, it's going to be possibly between Malo and Leber if Malo has enough fuel. But again, still with that distance between himself and Leber, although that could be a little bit of a strategic play.
So the final lap of the race starts now, or almost starts now here on the iRacing Esports Network, the 2K World Cup presented by DES Simulations, and it is Philippe Leber who leads the way, although it's closing towards turn number 1. Alfredo Malo looking round the outside on this final lap of the event. Leber able to hold on though through turn number 1, and I think actually Alfredo got himself disqualified there through some contact, and that has given the race win almost certainly to Philippe Leber. Here is a look in towards turn number 1. I saw the slightest bit of contact. I need to see it again, but I think, yeah, Philippe Leber and Alfredo Malo just made contact in towards turn number 1, and as a consequence, Malo gets disqualified from the race, giving a clear run to Philippe Leber. There's only a handful of corners to go, and Simon Edwards may well be good, but he's not that good in order to close up to the rear of Philippe Leber. As I say, we are on that final lap of the event now. Philippe Leber coming down towards the start-finish line. Gonzalo Callo did not have the fuel to get to the end. Johnny Gindy has fallen all the way down to 9th place. He didn't have the fuel to get to the end, but Philippe Leber will come past the start-finish line. He is your winner in the first round of the 2K World Cup Super Season, presented by DES Simulations. Simon Edwards in second, Iron De Freitas in third. Well, we were right with the fuel there, Gary, at least.
Yeah, definitely correct, and I believe Johnny Gindy still has enough. Yeah, he's just going to barely make it across the line in 10th place. Just out of fuel, unfortunately. That was, yeah, definitely right about the fuel, unfortunately, and wow, that's heartbreaking for Malo. He was doing an amazing job with definitely working turn 1 on the outside lane. He was definitely trying his best, but unfortunately it was a little bit too good, I believe, in that case.
Let's give you a final race result, shall we, from the 2K World Cup, presented by DES Simulation. And it is Philippe Leber who claims victory by 1.4 seconds over Simon Edwards at the end. Iron De Freitas, 3rd place. Julian Alfred in 4th. Greg Zeitz rounds out your top 5. Diego Francisco, Sasha Goyle, Scott Velez, Johnny Gindy, and Francois Boulien rounds out your top 10. Johnny Gindy running out of fuel on the last lap of this event, similar to Sasha Goyle. On to page number 2. And it's Edwin Valerino in 11th place, Carl Dronke in 12th, Arnaud Chabens in 13th, Anthony Catt in 14th, and Chris Malcolm rounds out your top 15. Then it's Enzo Cancer, Perklis Adinopoulos. Alfredo Malo, of course, has himself the incident which drops him down to your top 20. It's a little bit weird, the timing and scoring here today because of the late race incidents with the disqualifications as well as people running out of fuel. But Alfredo Malo does finish all the way down in 20th place on track. Remainder of those results up then on your screen. And let's have a chat with your race winner, Philippe Laibert, new season, and once again you're in victory circle. How's it feel?
Well, it's a good start, right? Yeah, it was a lot easier at the end than I thought, but I think everyone in that lead group underfueled, and I could see that because they were acting weird. And when I passed them for the lead with 5 laps to go, they were not trying to attack. So, yeah, I think they all ran out of fuel.
Talk us through the moment with Alfredo Malo in the final lap, because it looks like you two had a bit of contact into turn number 1, which essentially made him hit the disqualification incident point limit.
Oh, is that so? Because I didn't see or feel anything. Did he hit me? Or did I hit him?
We're not sure. We need to find a replay. But it was close battling through the end of this race. But, I mean, were you expecting it to come down to fuel mileage at all?
Not really, because we could do almost 15 laps on a tank of fuel, and everybody pitted on lap 14 or 15, so everyone should have had plenty of fuel. So I was very surprised to see that.
And we're going to put up, of course, the rest of the Super Season schedule on your screen. Of course, next time out, we head ourselves over to Brands Hatch. Well, it's going to be the Indy layout of Brands Hatch, so only 6 corners to memorize, but it is a tough and demanding racetrack there down at Brands Hatch. Again, it's narrow, like we had here today. What are your thoughts as we head into that event in a week's time?
It's going to be Draft Fest, I think. I don't really like the track, but it's a track that's used for the Formula Ford Festival, I think. So it's pretty good for the Skippy, because the Skippy is pretty similar to Formula Ford. So I think we're gonna see some crazy racing there.
Well, before I let you go, Philippe, shout out sponsors who gets it done for you and that TT Racing team.
Yeah, shout out to my team, TT Racing. We were only with 3 cars this time, so which is unusual. Greg and Diogo, they did a great job surviving the battle in the second pack. And I also want to thank our league sponsor, DES Simulation, for sponsoring us for our 4th season in a row.
Well, thank you very much. That's Philippe Laibert coming home with the race victory here today. 3rd place in your standings will be Aaron De Freitas. I'm going to hand it over to Gary, who's with him.
Yeah, here with Aaron De Freitas, who's started in 9th place and then just kind of hung out around there up until the final few laps of this race. So an amazing job to come up 6 positions, finishing in the podium as well. So how did this race go for you?
Yeah, it went pretty okay. Had a bit of a hassle in the beginning, I think, with Enzo. That's why I lost the draft with the guys in front. But yeah, looking on my JRT, I could see I was matching the times of the guys in front without draft, so I could keep up with them. And then was hoping after the pits I would get closer. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen. But with Simon, we worked our way back, and then I think the guys in the front started saving a bit, and that's why we caught up. But yeah, all in all, pretty happy with 3rd place coming from 9th.
Yeah, especially with this race and the fact that everybody, and probably you at some points as well, were getting that gravel trap off of turn number 2. How was that affecting the handling of the car anyway, or is that getting better throughout the run?
It was okay. I only had 1 off track there, so in the beginning where I was forced off track there, but I usually don't take the gravel trap that much. You can kind of clip it, but in the end it doesn't matter much.
That's pretty interesting to know. So before we go ahead and let you go, anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to or thank for your 3rd place finish?
Obviously, thanks to the guys at the ERT, and thanks to Logitech G, our sponsor. Awesome to be back this season, and obviously shout out to you guys for broadcasting.
Thank you for your time as well. Aaron De Freitas finishing 3rd place, and I believe we have possibly somebody else on standby for an interview.
Yeah, we do. We've got Johnny Gindy, who we are going to have a quick word with right now. Well, Johnny, it was all going so well until we got to the last couple of laps, and I think you started realizing you didn't have enough fuel to get to the end. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I was actually surprised. Usually when I make a mistake with the fuel, I I mean, I'm regretting it since the pit stop. I realized pretty quickly, but this time I honestly have no idea what happened because I usually just write down how much fuel I have to add whenever I stop, assuming I don't save any fuel, and then I just see how much fuel I have left compared to that. So I took half a liter less because that's what, in theory, I saved during the first stint, and then I was about a whole lap short. So it's just very odd. I think I need to look at the telemetry, see what happened.
Well, next time out, we head ourselves to another complicated racetrack. Even though it's only got 6 corners, it's going to be the Brands Hatch Indy layout that we're heading ourselves over to. A little bit different from here. You haven't got the long straightaways, but what's your thoughts as we head into the second round of the 2K World Cup Super?
Yeah, it's definitely a fun track, and especially that configuration makes it quite a bit of a challenge to actually pass people. So it sort of rewards you if you're actually quick, which sometimes is a good thing. But yeah, it'll definitely be fun. Any sort of track like that one where it's actually a challenge to get past, that's the sort of track I like.
Well, before we let you go, Johnny, shout out sponsors. Who gets it done for you and your team?
Obviously, DriveX Esports. We lost a few members today, but we're not recruiting, but we've got a bunch of really good people already here, and I'm sure we'll pull together and do a good job.
Well, thank you very much. Whoa. Sorry. I'm sorry, but the NFL Network, they always say that they're commercial free. Why am I getting a commercial for college football next Saturday? It still counts as a commercial. You blew it, NFL Network. But before we go, Gary, I mean, it's worth noting it was a great race here today, but next week, Brands Hatch, it's going to be a different kind of crazy.
I've never seen a race at Brands Hatch somehow, on iRacing at least, well, and in real life, so that's going to be interesting, to be quite honest. I look forward to that.
Well, unfortunately, you won't see me because I'll be in Germany, probably recovering from sleep deprivation, of course. Don't forget that this coming weekend, we are going to be at IAA Frankfurt. It will be a special round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup. It will be a non-championship round. It will be Saturday. More information, you can find it on our social media pages. But that is all we got time for here today from the first round of the 2K World Cup Super Season, presented by DES Simulation from Summit Point Raceway. From Gary Weather and myself, Will Vincent, we say good night from Summit Point Raceway, and we'll talk to you all next time.